When you hear the name Musyoka, your mind probably jumps straight to politics, to power, to Kalonzo Musyoka, Kenya's long-serving political heavyweight. A man who has walked the corridors of power for decades, serving as vice president, minister, and one of the most influential leaders of our time. But here is something you may not know. His son, Kennedy Musoka, once had a very different dream, not of campaigns and elections, not of government bills or policy debates, but of beats, of music. Yes, Kennedy once dreamed of becoming a DJ. Picture that moment, the son of one of Kenya's most prominent politicians, not standing on podiums, but standing behind turntables, entertaining crowds deep into the Nairobi night. Kennedy is the firstborn in the family, born to Kalonzo Musyoka and Pauline Musoka. Being the eldest in a political household carries a weight that is hard to describe. Everyone expects you to be a leader, a role model, and sometimes even a replica of your parent. From the outside, many assumed that the Musoka children lived lives of privilege, filled with luxury and comfort. But Kennedy himself has often hinted that it wasn't exactly that way. His father was away more often than he was home, busy in campaigns, negotiations, and government meetings. He remembers being told, "Your father is building the nation." At the time, those words felt distant. What did building the nation mean to a boy who just wanted his dad at his school events or around the dinner table? But as he grew older, those words carried weight. They meant sacrifice, they meant service, they meant living not for yourself, but for something bigger. In school, Kennedy was known as a bright but quiet student. Despite being the son of a famous politician, he blended in. Teachers admired his humility, classmates respected his calmness. He wasn't the loud, boastful type. Instead, he carried himself with a quiet dignity, a reflection of his mother's influence and his own nature. But being the child of a politician wasn't easy. There was loneliness, long days without a father around, the heavy burden of living up to a public name, and above all, the whispers, people assuming that his life was simple, when in reality it was layered with responsibility. Most people thought Kennedy's path was already drawn, law school, politics, diplomacy, but his heart, at least in his teenage years, was beating to a very different rhythm, music. As a young man, Kennedy fell in love with DJing. He wasn't just casually interested, he was passionate. He saved up his money, determined like any younger dreamer, chasing a passion. Finally, he bought himself a set of Pioneer CDJ 800 decks. For DJs, that is like an artist buying their first real brush set, or a footballer getting their first pair of pro boots. His dream was to light up Nairobi's nightlife, to spin at parties, to get people dancing, to control the mood of a room with nothing but beats and transitions. Friends from high school and college remember how he would spend hours experimenting with mixes. Kennedy would lock himself away, headphones on, lost in the world of sound. It wasn't about politics, it wasn't about power, it was about pure joy. But dreams can be fragile. One day, he lent his decks to a friend, and they came back ruined. That moment shattered him. The heartbreak was so deep that Kennedy abandoned his DJ dream altogether. Sometimes destiny hides in heartbreak. For Kennedy, losing his DJ path forced him to ask a deeper question. If not music, then what? After shelving his music dream, Kennedy's journey took him abroad for studies, and this was the turning point. Back home in Kenya, he had grown to despise politics. He thought it was dirty, divisive, driven more by personalities than politics. But living abroad exposed him to a different reality. In student associations, international debates, and university politics, Kennedy saw another side of leadership. Outside Kenya, politics was about systems, representation, about people having a voice in shaping their future. For the first time, Kennedy realized his problem wasn't with politics itself. It was with the way politics was practiced in Kenya. That realization shifted everything. He began to see politics not as something to escape, but as something to reform. And slowly, the reluctant politician was being born. In his early 30s, Kennedy Musoka made history. He became one of the youngest Kenyans to represent the country in the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA. Now, for those who may not know, EALA is the legislative arm of the East African Community. It's where laws, policies, and strategies affecting the entire East African region are debated and passed. It's a big deal and a big responsibility. But Kennedy's appointment didn't come without controversy. Many critics whispered that he was only there because of his father, that Kalonzo Musyoka had paved the way for him, that he hadn't earned it. But Kennedy was calm in response. He insisted, "I am my own man." At Yala, he threw himself into work, debates on youth empowerment, regional integration, and policy reforms. He wasn't just sitting quietly, he was contributing. But no matter what he did, the shadow of dynasty politics followed him. Still, his appointment carried symbolism. Here was a young man in his 30s, showing that leadership wasn't just for the old, that Africa's new generation could step up. Kennedy's story is not a simple one of privilege. It's about struggle, personal, emotional, and political. He has spoken about the absence of his father during his childhood, the lessons of sacrifice, and the pressure of carrying a famous name. For many children of politicians, identity is the hardest battle. Are you yourself? Are you simply your parents' child? From losing his DJ dream to battling public perception that he was a dynasty kid, Kennedy had to carve his own path. His lessons are clear. Life will not always go as planned, but sometimes the detours lead you to your real destiny. Today, Kennedy Musoka is more than just Kalonzo's son. He is an Eyala legislator, a youth advocate, and an inspiration to many young people who may not want to follow traditional paths. He represents a generation of Kenyan politicians who are global-minded, youthful, and unafraid of criticism. Beyond politics, Kennedy has hinted at future ambitions, ambassadorial roles, diplomacy, and creating spaces for young people to thrive in governance. He balances public life with private simplicity, and through it all, he has remained humble, approachable, and relatable. From the dream of spinning records as a DJ to sitting in one of East Africa's most important political assemblies, Kennedy Musoka's journey has been anything but ordinary. His story reminds us that dreams change, paths shift, and sometimes destiny hides behind heartbreak. While his father built the nation, Kennedy is learning how to shape the future one step at a time.
Do you think that your father's influence had anything to do with this? Competence or not being considered?
Well, I'll be lying to say he didn't have an influence. I think I'm lucky insofar as I'm able to learn a lot from him. I've watched him handle meetings, chair meetings, deal with different issues in the region. In fact,
Did you know that the first signs of mental illness is denying that you are a madman?
Hakuna president yoyote, even dictators kama kina Hitler wangemetamka maneno kusema piga watoto bunduki. Hakuna kiongozi ambaye amechaguliwa na kura anaweza kuambia watu askari ukiwaona wapige miguu ili waende wakakufie njiani. That is not leadership.